I'm looking forward to this. Okay, now that class has officially started, I'll say hello and welcome once again. Welcome specifically to Phil 2501A, which is Introduction to Philosophy of Mind. So this is a fun course that um, I've taught every summer for the past, oh geez, it's been a while. It's been probably 5 years, maybe more. I've actually lost count. But it's a fun class to teach. Um, and I'm looking forward to this iteration of the class. I'm looking forward to getting to know all of you and to leading you on this little learning journey that we're undertaking into the philosophy of mind. So, the plan for today is basically just to go over the course outline. We'll talk about what our learning objectives are, um, what the course will be about. We'll go over the textbook, TA information. Um, we'll just kind of skim this, make sure that we're all basically on the same page as far as our learning objectives go, as far as what's required of you as students, and what's required of me as the professor. Okay, so introduction to philosophy of mind. As you all know, if you're already here, I imagine you already know this. We'll be meeting on Mondays and Wednesdays. Um, Again, class time is 2:35 to 5:35 p.m. I'll probably open the meeting up right at 2:30, and then we can just hang out until 2:35 when we officially begin. Um, this course is is technically a synchronous course, but since the meetings are recorded, I understand that many of you will probably, for one reason or another, it could be scheduling issues. Maybe you work, maybe you have something else going on. Some of you will be watching the recorded lectures rather than joining us live. I think it is better to join the lectures live, but I understand that that's not always possible. So fortunately, what I will be doing is making these available on my YouTube channel for people to watch. Um, if you don't want to be shown on camera, I would just keep your camera off. You can even change your name if you're concerned about privacy. Um, but all this is to say, if you cannot ever attend a live lecture, it's no big deal. Um, it is important to keep caught up with the recorded lectures, though. It is easy to fall behind in a class like this. That is a class that's delivered online. So if you don't join us live, do be sure that you're keeping up with the recorded lectures. All right. So, instructor information. Well, I'm your instructor. I'm Dr. Josh Redstone. I took a look through the class list and I see that I do have some students who I've seen in other courses. But a lot of you, I don't think I've had the pleasure of instructing before. So if you've been in one of my courses previously, welcome back. Oh, here is my cat. And if you're new, welcome. So welcome one, welcome all. Yes, I'm Dr. Josh Redstone, and um, as one of you mentioned, I hold a PhD in cognitive science from Carleton University. I also have a master's degree in philosophy from Carleton University. I've been teaching in the philosophy department for past little while now, as first a contract instructor, and then what we used to call a term instructor. Now I'm an assistant professor on the teaching stream. And my interests include things like mind, AI, philosophy of robotics, philosophy of technology. Basically, I'm interested in those conceptual and empirical questions that arise at the intersection of mind, AI, cognitive science, and social robotics. And this class is a fun one to teach for me because it does sort of fit within that sort of intersection. Let's see. We've got some stuff in the chat. Hi, cat. Cat. The cat's name. Yes. The cat's name is Yo-Yo. Yes, and he is an old fellow. I like to describe him as being retired presently. Um, and he's right now he's sucking up because he wants to go outside. He's trying to use all his powers to trick me into letting him outside, but his powers don't work on me. Yo-Yo is going to be 16 this summer. So that's how old Yo-Yo is. So he's retired, and he likes to hang out with me while I teach. So if you see him or his tail, I hope it's not too distracting. If you need to get a hold of me, oh wow, 19. Wow, awesome. That's great. Um, if you need to get a hold of me, um, always try and reach out for official business using using your Carlton email. Make sure you send it to my Carlton email. Any communications. As I'll talk about in a moment, we do have a Discord server for this course, which is kind of like a more of a hangout spot. So you're welcome to get to know one another in the Discord server. I'll tell you some other handy things I think you should use that space for as well later on. But anything official should really go from your Carlton email address to my Carlton email address. My office hours are by appointment over the summer. That's because right now I'm not physically present in Ottawa. I kind of bounce back and forth over the summers. Right now I am in North Bay, Ontario. If I am in Ottawa and you'd like to meet with me, that I'm sure we can arrange that, but I might not be. So all meetings will be by appointment over Zoom, unless I am otherwise able to meet you in person. Yes. So you want to get, let's see, probably try the link. There might be some trouble with the link in a. There was another version of this course outline that had a different link in it. I would try this link or the link I've posted on Brightspace in the helpful materials module. And if that doesn't work, I will make another link. But I'll have more to say about the Discord server in a moment. Okay, our teaching assistant for the term is Jack Reagan. So Jack is a philosophy student. He's in his fourth year of undergraduate study, well, finishing the fourth year, and beginning graduate school. And he's here to say hello to everybody. So, Jack, if you want to say hi or uh, let the class know anything else, take it away.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say. Thank you for the congratulations. Yeah, so I'm an incoming master's student at Carleton. I took this class, I think, 2 years ago now. And yeah, my research interests are philosophy of mind, ethics of artificial intelligence. So this is also kind of my ballpark, and I'm excited to get to read everyone's work. And yeah, just nice to pop by and kind of put a face to the name for all of you, so it's not just some anonymous grading machine.
Yeah, I think we want to assure the students that that the marking in this class is done by human beings. So I will be doing some of it. Jack will be doing a lot of it. We are both people, not programs. We're not robots. You don't have anything to worry. I know I saw this is kind of a tangent, but I know I've seen posters around the campus about concerns. Students' concerns about automatizing some of the marking. I can assure you that nothing like that is happening in this class. Um, so thank you, Jack, for saying hi. You can stick around if you want, or if you have somewhere to be. Either way, it's cool.
Yeah, yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, no,
Have a great day, everyone else.
yeah, all right, thanks. And yeah, it's going to be fun to work with Jack, uh, and well, Jack is a very good TA, and I'm happy to be working with him again. So what are we doing here? What is this course all about? Well, as I've said in this description here on the course outline, this is an introduction to some of the major philosophical issues that concern human cognition. Um, some of the topics that we're going to cover include the relationship of the mind and the body. In fact, that's how the author of our textbook, Jagwon Kim, kind of structures everything. His entire discussion is sort of, well, literally bookended um, with the mind body problem. But other things that we'll inevitably get to talk about are um, uh, knowledge of other minds. So, knowing other minds, solipsism. This is all related to what we call the problem of other minds. We'll be interested in the relation of mental states to things like, well, especially things like intentionality, action, free will, consciousness, not so much personhood and personal identity. I think I really do need to change that. We'll be looking at things like mental realism, mental causation, etc., etc. So basically, a broad sort of introduction to fundamental questions about the nature of the mental. I mean, that's really what philosophy is all about. Philosophy comes from the Greek. It means love of wisdom. And I think the way that a lot of philosophers understand what they do nowadays in the 21st century, in addition to being lovers of wisdom, is that they understand themselves as engaging with fundamental questions. So when I say fundamental, I don't mean basic, but I mean, um, well, questions that are fundamental in the sense that they're foundational. So we're asking fundamental questions about the nature of the mental in this course. So, what kinds of things are minds? What kinds of things are mental states? And how do they all work? Right? Those are the kinds of things that we'll be asking and hopefully answering in this course. Um, Beyond that, well, I'll save everything else I have to say about um, what exactly we're doing here until we get to our little course schedule on the next page. Am I a dualist? I certainly am not. Almost no one is. Well, almost no one is a substance dualist. There are property dualists, but almost no one is a substance dualist. So, but I'll say a little bit more about that in a moment. The textbook, we're going to be using Jagwon Kim's Philosophy of Mind, the third edition specifically. Now, you can find this in the um, campus store. If you're on campus or if you're near the campus, if you're in Ottawa, you can go down to the campus store and pick up a copy. It'll run you, I think, 96.50. Now, I know that's expensive and money's tight when you're a student. So, another way that you can access the textbook is to go to the library. Here, I will show you how to access an online version of the textbook. So I've just Googled Carleton University Library. We can see the Macodrum Library webpage. A link to that webpage comes up. I'll just click log in because I'm logging in from off campus. So I'll hit library proxy. I'll log in with my Carleton 1 credentials, and then I can search for this textbook. So let's see. Let's just do Jagwon Kim Philosophy of Mind, and we should see it. Here we go. This one, the second search result I've got here is the one we're looking for. I guess you could also do this one. That seems to be the same edition, even though the dates are different. But it says here available online. So we're going to click that link, and we're going to see that we have access to it through eBook Central Academic Complete. So I'll click that link, and now I have access to the book. Let's just accept the cookies. And now you can see I have access to the whole table of contents, and I can download PDF chapters or I can read them online. This is the one we're going to be looking at next week on Monday. Introduction. The introduction, which is really like an introduction to some of the important terms and concepts that we're going to need to know for the rest of our learning journey. So you can see here, I can click on this. Wait for that page to load. Again, I have options here, print, download, etc. So there you can see that is how you can access the textbook. Back to the course outline. So you will need to read that textbook. And I think that you will get the greatest benefit out of these readings if you do them before class. Um, in fact, it's really sort of expected that you will have the readings done before lecture. I understand that it's not always possible, um, but it's a wise idea. And that way, if you have any questions, I can, well, clarify them in the course of my lecture. Now, my lectures do tend to stick pretty close to this text, and this is a highly technical textbook. You'll find that the further into the book we get, the more technical some of this stuff becomes. But don't stress about that. My job is to help you understand the material. I am an explainer and an interpreter of this material. So even though I've chosen a pretty technical sort of textbook, um, part of what I'm supposed to do here is to make it accessible to you. And I think again, you will benefit um, greatly if you read ahead of the lectures. To access everything else, you need to be on Brightspace. Now, if you're accessing this lecture, you're it, well, you're already familiar with Brightspace. You know how to get on the page, find your course, navigate to the appropriate course modules, and all of that nice stuff. So I don't think I need to say anything about how to, how to actually do any of that. Um, just know that that's where everything important is going to be. In fact, I'll just hop over here. So if you go to the content, the content thing here, the content menu here under course details, you'll find my welcome message and the course outline. Here we are on week one. So let's go to our week one module where you've already been. You'll find links to lectures. I've linked the course outline again. If we go to week two, you'll see I've got outlines of what we'll be covering. Little summary here. I will post the links to the lectures and the recorded lectures here. I will put my PowerPoint slides here, and here is where we have the optional readings. I'll talk a bit more about those in a moment as well. I do my best to make my PowerPoint slides available before we meet, but I do that as a courtesy, which means I'll do it if I can, but I'm not always able to. So typically, I would say keep an eye out for those PowerPoints the day before our lectures. Um, but if they're not there, don't panic. It's probably just because I haven't got to them yet. Although I shouldn't have any issues um, staying on track with that this summer. Okay, so just draw your attention to this. We might occasionally hold discussions, debates, question answer sessions. Interesting things come up during the lecture, which will not be reproduced outside of the lecture. And that's why it's very important that you participate in the online lectures, or at the very least, you watch the recordings of the lectures. Okay? How will you be evaluated? Well, near the top of the second page of the course outline, you can see a breakdown of how I will evaluate you. So you can see here, there are going to be two reflection assignments, each worth 20% of your final grade. You can see that they're due on May 22nd and June 18th, respectively. In between those, there's going to be an essay topic proposal assignment, also worth 25 or 20%, due on June 5th. And then in place of a traditional final exam, you will have a research essay, which functions as a take-home exam. That's worth 40% of your grade, and that is due on the final day of the exam period of the early summer session, which is June 27th. So, not much, well, not many items to worry about in terms of the coursework that you'll have to do, but each of these is worth quite a substantial chunk of your grade. So it's important to put the work in and to really try and do your best. I provide detailed instructions and sort of like grade guides, or I'm actually going to reformulate how I do this. I'm going to be doing like checklists. Um, and if you check everything off uh, in the checklist, you'll do well on these assignments, right? That's why for example, um, air travel is so safe. Those pilots have a heck of a lot of checklists to make sure that everything is working smoothly and going okay. So I thought, well, why don't I start doing checklists for my students? Um, and you make sure, as long as you're checking those boxes, not just checking things off, but checking the boxes by doing the things that are spelled out in each of the boxes in your assignments, you'll do well. So I'll provide all those checklists, marking guides, detailed instructions. Um, I promise that you will always, if as long as you are here um, in lecture or watching the recordings, keeping up with my lectures, with my instructions, you will have a very good idea of what you need to do in these assignments in order to succeed, in order to get really good grades and to come away having learned something from these assignments. How realistic is getting an A plus? It's realistic. Not everyone is going to get an A plus, right? But if you really put the work in, um, you can succeed in this class. Like it is doable. All right. Okay, let's look at the course schedule. So, this is week one. We're on week one right now. It's just a welcome and course overview, and all we're doing is looking at the course outline. I won't be lecturing at all today. I'm just going to make sure that we're all ready to begin our learning journey together. But week two, we have two lectures. The first one will be an introduction to the philosophy of mind. And for this lecture, I want you to have read chapter one of our textbook. So, chapter one of Kim. And I want you also to take a look either at Terry Bisson's short story, They're Made Out of Meat, or the short film version that I've made available on Brightspace, which was directed by Kevin O'Regan. Um, I think Kevin? Well, whoever. Um, you can read the story, you can watch the film, or you can do both. But I think that you will get something out of having either read the story or watched the film. Because well, it's quite intimately connected to some of the problems that we're going to be discussing in this course, in particular, um, the mind-body problem. So I'll say more about that later, but for now, either watch O'Regan's film or read Bisson's short story, and make sure you've read chapter one, where Kim lays out what is philosophy of mind? What are we doing when we do philosophy of mind? Again, the way I think of it and the way many others think of it is that what we do when we do philosophy of mind is we ask fundamental questions related to the nature of the mental. So questions related to minds, to mental states, to perception, to cognition, to free will, to consciousness, to action, etc. Questions in the chat. Okay, a question from Arshia. I have a question regarding the proof of student work. Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Yeah, and you're right, Grant. There's Turing. Turing is here. Turing, I love Turing. Turing's my. I don't really have a favorite philosopher. But I guess maybe if I did, it might be Alan Turing, even though he's usually thought of as a mathematician or a computer scientist. Okay, and then for our second lecture of our second week, we will read Kim chapter 2, which is about dualism. So we'll be, and this is kind of the standard jumping off point for contemporary philosophy of mind. We look at Rene Descartes' substance dualism. And Kim's second chapter is all about Descartes' dualism and the problems associated with it, right? Descartes proposes this account of the mental where we have physical things and we have mental things. So we have as he calls them bodies, right? And bodies for Descartes doesn't just mean like your body and my body. It means objects, things that are made of matter, or as he called them, res extensa, extended substance, substance that takes up space, has bulk, as Kim puts it in this chapter, and so forth. And then you've got thinking substance, or res cogitans, the mind or the soul. Um, that's that's Descartes. That's the sort of elevator pitch version of Descartes' dualism. The problem with dualism is the mind-body problem. Of course, how does an unextended thinking substance interact with an extended non-thinking substance? It's a problem Descartes raises in his dualist account of the mental, and it's a problem that he never really solved. It's a problem that nobody's really solved on a dualistic approach, at least a substance dualist approach. So we'll talk about that, get into a little bit of the criticisms that, for example, Princess Elizabeth of Bohemia had to offer against Descartes. And the optional but recommended readings for this week are, of course, Descartes' Meditations, which you can already find on Brightspace. You don't need to read all of them. I mean, it's great if you want to read all of them, but if you can't read all of them, focus on the first, second, and sixth meditations, because those are the ones that Kim discusses in his chapter. Yeah, back to Turing, the imitation game. Yes, I have mixed feelings about it, but maybe I'll save that for when we talk about um, machine functionalism. Okay. By the way, these optional but recommended readings, they're all, as I've called them here, supplementary readings. They're marked with an asterisk. They are, as I said, supplementary. That you don't have to read them. But if you want to get an A plus, if you want to really arm yourself with um, as much knowledge as possible about the nature of the mind, then then you've got to read them. That's why I've made them available. So not only are these classic readings in the philosophy of mind, they are what Kim draws upon in his chapters. So, and I can't say this with certainty, but I get the impression from reading Kim's textbook that Kim's textbook is probably the product of lecture notes that he used when he was teaching on the philosophy of mind. And I get the sense that the readings that he would have had his students do included some of these extra supplementary readings that I've made available. So they are optional, but they are highly recommended. And one of the things that you ought to do if you want to get an A or an A plus in this class is to read those supplementary readings. So that is what we will be doing for the second week. Now, the third week, we only have one meeting. Um, that's because of the Victoria Day long weekend. Um, so for that meeting, we'll be talking about behaviorism. So for that, you're going to want to read Kim chapter 3, and you're going to want to read Hempel's paper, The Logical Analysis of Psychology. So we're going to be talking about behaviorism, both in the sense of behaviorist psychology. So we're talking, John Watson and B.F. Skinner, who kind of, dispensed with questions about the mental and focused on observable behavior. We'll be talking about that, but we'll also be talking about logical behaviorism, which was a sort of parallel development in analytic philosophy. So that'll be fun. Again, for the background, read Hempel, um, and definitely read Kim Chapter 3. Then your first reflection assignment will be due on the 22nd of May. I'll say more about those assignments in a moment. Okay, week 4, we get back to our regular schedule. Lecture 1 is going to be on something called identity theory. Identity theory is a theory of the mental that identifies mental states with physical states. The kind of identity theory that we're going to be predominantly concerned with when we look at this chapter is type identity theory, which is a theory that says basically each type of mental state is identical with a type of brain state. So, what is it to be in a state of pain? It's just to have certain events happening in the brain, like, for example, your C fibers firing. Now, there are problems with that we'll look at next time, but that's what we're going to be doing in terms of, well, learning materials for that week. So for that, you're going to want to read Kim Chapter 4, and I highly recommend you read Feigel's paper, The Mental and the Physical, and Smart's paper, Sensations and Brain Processes. These are two like really big, important um, contributions to philosophy of mind. Again, they're optional, but highly recommended. Then, for our second lecture, I will give you detailed instructions on how to write your essay proposals and on how to take those proposals and turn them into your final essays. And the reason I spend so much time on this is because I find it's quite beneficial for my students. If my students um, do as the instructions say, they tend to do pretty well on their proposals and on their lecture on their essays. So that's why we'll be dedicating a whole 3 hours to that. Oh yeah, Grant, that's a good point. Yeah, so yeah, some of you might not have written an essay, right? Or maybe if you have, it was years ago. Um, this way, we all know what we need to do, right? The philosophers in the room, you guys write essays all the time. So you might not feel like you need any instructions, and that's fine, but you should still follow my instructions. Still come show up and take part in that essay writing lecture. But for people like Grant, if you're like a physicist and you don't do this sort of thing, well, my instructions are designed to give you a pretty clear idea of what I expect in the proposal and in the final essay. So, and the nice thing is about recording these lectures is that these instructions are just like there, and you can go back and refresh yourself if you need to. All right. Week 5, we're going to be looking at functionalism. So for lecture 1, we're going to look at machine functionalism, where the mind is understood in terms of a Turing machine. A Turing machine is like an imaginary computer, essentially. And then we'll talk about causal theoretical functionalism for week 2. So for lecture 1, read Kim chapter 5. And for the optional readings, I've got Turing's paper, Computing Machinery and Intelligence. Um, he actually explains the notion of a Turing machine in much more detail and much more technical detail, specifically in an earlier paper called On Computable Numbers. Um, but chances are most of you are not going to be able to follow that paper. It is very, very technical. But he gives a pretty good account of what a Turing machine is in computing machinery and intelligence. So that's the one I've recommended here. And you're also going to want to read Hilary Putnam's paper on psychological predicates. So Putnam kind of takes the Turing machine, which is how Turing formalized the notion of computation. And Putnam says, well, like, the mind might be like a Turing machine. So those are all highly recommended. Oh, the paper is called On Computable Numbers. Grant, if you have a physics background, you might actually enjoy that one. Uh, because it's very math heavy, very formal logic heavy. I think you could probably manage. I think anybody, and it's not to say that if you don't have some familiarity with logic, you wouldn't be able to follow it. But you'd probably want to read it a couple of times. um, oh, astrophysics, cool. Yeah, so don't be shy. I mean, I don't want to discourage anyone from reading on computable numbers. Um, I guess don't be intimidated. Don't be intimidated by what you find. Okay, then where were we? Causal theoretical functionalism. Going to want to read Kim chapter 6, and optional but highly recommended once again is Lewis's paper Psychophysical and Theoretical Identifications. Actually, that's another kind of like logic heavy paper, but it's I don't know, it's not that bad. Worst case scenario, maybe you have to read it over a couple of times. But remember, it's my job to make all of this make sense to you. So don't fret if you read it and you're like, it's okay. It's all right. You're going to understand everything by the time we're all finished. Then, of course, this week on the Friday, your essay proposal will be due. Week 6, we've got mental causation and mental content. So we're going to be looking at Kim, chapter 7. Mental causation, what is that? Mental causation, I guess, concerns whether mental states have causal powers. So, we have this sort of sense that mental states are causal, that mental states play causal roles. For example, desire a cup of coffee or a sip of coffee, and I believe that I have this cup of coffee in front of me. Um, and I decide, you know what, I'm going to take a sip of that delicious coffee. You'll see me drinking a lot of coffee in this course. Um, I don't have a problem. I can stop when I want to. But, it feels like I made this happen, or my mental states played a causal role in my extending my arm and picking up the cup and taking a sip, right? That's probably how it feels to you, too. You act on the basis of reasons, right? You're all agents. You act, you do things, and you do things because you have reasons for doing them and you decided to act on them. But Kim is pretty worried about whether this is the case. Kim has a worry over something called epiphenomenalism. Epiphenomenalism is the idea that mental states are all effect and no cause, as I like to put it. So that's what we'll be dealing with there. Mental causation. Uh, do mental states play causal roles, or is epiphenomenalism true? And if it's true, what would that mean for us with respect to agency and free will? The extra reading for this week is a fun one. It's an I mean old like from the 19th century lecture by Thomas Henry Huxley. Thomas Henry Huxley was known as Darwin's bulldog. He was a vigorous defender of Darwin's theory of natural selection. And this is actually a really cool lecture. Like, you really should read it. Uh, he recounts all of this sort of history of, well, not just like natural history, but physiology, medicine, draws on all this interesting research that had been done kind of since around the time of Descartes to try to show that human beings are conscious automata. That is, that we are like robots. We are like natural robots with conscious mental states. I'll have more to say about this, but it's especially interesting to me given that we start off with some of Descartes' ideas. Descartes, who thought our bodies were machine-like in an important sense, but that our minds were of a different nature, and that animals, non-human animals, had no minds. Descartes thought non-human animals were beast machines, as he called them. So they acted, according to the dispositions of their organs, like as if they were just little mechanical clockwork mechanisms. If you step on a cat's tail and it yowls in pain, well, that's just the inner mechanisms. It's not actually experiencing anything, Descartes would say. Huxley says, no, we're all like machines in this sense. And we have mental states. Not only do we humans have them, non human animals have them as well. So that's very interesting. Bit of extra reading that I think you should take a look at. Yeah. Yeah, Descartes. Look, also, I want to say, like, I don't want to give Descartes a bad rep. If you study Descartes as a philosopher, you have to be careful not to come away with the impression that like, oh, dumb Descartes who just was a substance dualist and was wrong about everything, and why do we bother with Descartes? Descartes was a hugely important figure in the scientific revolution, right? I mean, Descartes was trying to come up with um, a mechanistic understanding of how the human body worked, which was very much in line with what natural philosophers of the time were doing and what they would do just a short while later. So I'm talking like, Isaac Newton, right? It was Descartes who first proposed a natural explanation for how rainbows work. It was Descartes who invented the Cartesian plane. Descartes made contributions to medicine and physiology. So just because we're going to be like looking at substance dualism and going, "Oh, substance dualism, it's wrong," um, do not succumb to the impression that Descartes was a bad philosopher. He wasn't. Um, he might be canceled today, sure, but I don't know. So would most historical philosophers, to be frank with you. Um, then we'll look at mental content. So where do mental states get their content from? Mental states are what we call intentional states. And I don't mean intentional like in the everyday sense, like, oh, I intend to pick up my coffee cup, so I do. That was like intentional the way I did that. That's not exactly what we mean. Uh, Intentionality in philosophy of mind in particular, means a state has content or a state is about something. And our mental states have content. Like I can look at my coffee cup and I have a visual impression of the cup. What is my perception about? Well, the coffee cup. The coffee cup. That's the content of my perception. Or I have a belief. Pick a belief, any belief. For the physicists in the room, the Earth is a sphere. Okay, that's a belief. What is the content of my belief? The shape of the Earth, right? Um, Now, where do mental states get that? That's what we'll be exploring when we read chapter 8 of our textbook. Now, I don't have an extra reading um, for that one. We'll just be focusing on the 8th chapter. Oh, hello, back again. Now, for the last week, we actually have three lectures. Um, we're going to be covering consciousness, but we're going to be flipping things around a little bit. Uh, why do we have three lectures? Well, because in the third week we only have one lecture. So we have to make up for that. So we've got three lectures. So we have a lecture on Monday the 15th, Wednesday the 17th, and Thursday the 18th. And we're going to flip our approach. This time, Kim's chapters 9 and 10 are optional but recommended. What we will be looking at as required reading are a couple of papers from philosophy of mind literature. First, we're going to look at Thomas Nagel's What Is It Like to Be a Bat, which discusses the problem of subjectivity. What is that? Well, philosophers and cognitive scientists, and I think really everybody who's interested in how we work, we want to understand how subjective consciousness works. As Daniel Dennett put it, consciousness is just about the last surviving mystery, and a mystery is something that we don't know how to think about yet. Why is it so mysterious? Well, if you were to ask Nagel, it has something to do with the nature of subjectivity. We want to study consciousness scientifically, and all of the tools of the sciences are objective, but consciousness is subjective. And so there's a sort of problem we bump up against here. Nagel is going to say, well, maybe we can't really understand, the nature of subjective consciousness the same way we can understand, I don't know, like evolution by natural selection or the Big Bang or something, because we can study those things objectively. But consciousness has this sort of ineffable subjective quality to it. And how do you study that with the objective tools of science? I mean, this is really a problem that David Chalmers articulated as the hard problem of consciousness. And it is related to the mind body problem, as we'll see. So we'll start with that, and then we're going to move on to Daniel Dennett's paper, Quining Qualia, which is what the heck does that mean? Well, to quine, after the philosopher Willard Van Orman Quine, to quine is sort of like to get rid of or to dispel unnecessary theoretical entities. And what Dennett tries to do is show that qualia, these subjective, ineffable elements of our first person experience, aren't like real. Uh, Now, don't misunderstand Dennett. Dennett is not saying that we're not conscious, but he's saying, both in this reading and elsewhere, that consciousness, the way consciousness works, misleads us. The way consciousness works, what it's like to be conscious, can actually mislead us when it comes to the nature of how consciousness actually works. So we'll probably take care of all of Nagel and maybe a little bit of Dennett there in Consciousness Part 1, and then finish talking about Dennett's paper in Consciousness Part 2. If we have to, we can carry over into the third lecture, and then we'll have some wrap up discussion. So we'll reflect on what we've learned, and of course, if you have questions about, as we head into the final exam period, if you have questions about your essays as you're working on those, I will be around to answer them. And the last reflection assignment will also be due on the 18th. So that is our schedule. Any questions so far? All right, no questions. That's good. Well, let's see. Lectures 2:35 to 5:25, Mondays and Wednesdays. Pretty straightforward. Zoom. Make sure Zoom is up to date and you're logged in with your MyCarlton 1 credentials. I mean, if you're here, congrats, you've clearly done that. Um, And of course, if you want to watch the recordings of the lectures, you can do so on my YouTube channel. I've got a link to my YouTube channel here, and there's also a link to the same channel um, on the in the helpful materials module on our Brightspace page. Actually, I'll show you that right now. Let's go there together. If you go back to Brightspace, and once again, we're on the content menu here, and you get this sort of table of contents. And if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you find this module, helpful materials. And so I've posted a link to the YouTube channel, a link to join the Discord server, and a link to the online writing lab from Purdue University. That'll be very handy when it comes to writing your essay. This is basically a collection of style guides for citations and references. It tells you how to cite your sources properly, basically. And so you'll find that quite helpful when it comes time to work on your reflection assignments, your proposal, your essay, etc. I will post templates and instructions and stuff for all of those assignments here in this module, but I don't have anything posted yet. But that's where you can find all of that. All right. Office hours are by appointment. Oh, since our typical lectures will be like 3 hours, usually what I do is I pause for a brain break. So 3 hours is a long time, to sit through. Uh, Even if you're interested in what we're talking about, 3 hours can be a long time to sit and to maintain your attention. So we usually pause for a little bit of a brain break halfway through. Normally, I say 10 to 15 minutes. And that way everybody can take a little breather. You can step outside. You can get up and stretch. Um, you can go to the washroom. You can get a coffee, whatever you want. 10, 15 minutes. Just to help break things up a little bit. And since it's been nearly an hour, I would like to propose that we take a 5-minute brain break right now. And then I'll tell you about the rest of the syllabus.
Sounds good.
All right. Excellent. So I have 327. So let us come back in 5 minutes. Um, so say about 332, 331, 332-ish. So we'll see you then. And what I'll do in the meantime is I will stop screen sharing and I will pause the recording. So, in case there's any hot mic moments, we don't have to worry about going viral. All right? So I will see you all in 5 minutes. All right. Welcome back, everybody. Oh, cannot minimize. Ah, that's what we want to do. We want to share the screen. So I talked about lectures. Just a reminder in terms of office hours, it's by appointment. I do try and keep an open door policy. So, if at any point you're like, hey, professor, I'm having trouble with this concept, or I'm not sure what to do with this assignment, or I just want some advice about university, or geez, whatever. Um, Let me know. Send me an email, and we'll set something up. And by the way, before I get to talking about the assignments, just as a sort of way of getting us from talk of office hours to assignments, I want to say that I tend to be um, pretty accommodating. Um, I understand that university is hard sometimes. I also understand that life is hard sometimes. Uh, stuff happens, right? I get it. People get sick. Uh, People have emergencies. Um, Computers malfunction. Um, Relatives have to go to the hospital, right? Pets get sick. Um, you know, who knows? Lots of stuff can happen while you're taking a course that might interfere with something in the course, with your ability to attend lectures, to get work done, to even get your readings done, to understand what we're doing, what we're learning about. I am here for you. I am in your corner, okay? I want you all to do well in this class. I want you all to learn lots and lots of things about the nature of the mental. I want you to uh, I want you to ask questions. You're going to encounter questions and raise questions that you didn't even know were there to be asked in this course. That's kind of how philosophy goes. A lot of my students, whenever they finish a course with me, and I imagine other profs at Carleton have a similar experience, but a lot of my students tell me that, you know, they feel like they learn a lot, and then they also feel at the same time that they know less, because they realize how much more they don't know. That will happen here too. So whether you have an emergency, a question, a concern, whatever, I am in your corner and you can reach out and talk to me. Um, and I don't want you to be shy, right? I'm here to help. I'm here to make sure that you can do the best job that you can possibly do, and I will do that. That is a commitment that I am making to all of you. So I want you to know that you are going to be supported in in all the ways that I can support your learning journey. And if something comes up, come talk to me. Like I want to help if I can, but I need to know. So don't be shy, okay? If you email me like, oh, I can't get my assignment in on time because X, Y, and Z happened. I'm not going to be mad. No, I'm going to say, okay, what can we do to make sure that it gets done and that it gets done well? All right? So don't be shy about emailing me and scheduling an appointment with me if you need to. Okay, let's talk about the reflection assignments. So there's going to be two of these, and they're going to be like mini essays. Each will be worth 20% of your grade for a total of 40%. The first one will be due on the 22nd of May, the second on June 18th. You're going to aim for about 750 words, hopefully not more than that. Um, and what you're going to do is try and identify something interesting that we've learned about up to that point, and then critically engage with it. By critically engage, I mean critique. What is a critique? Well, critique is not like you might think, uh, criticizing or mere criticizing, but you want to engage with it and ask questions about it. Extol its strengths and weaknesses, right? Right. Like if you're looking at a particular theory, what are the strengths of the theory? What are the weaknesses of the theory? What does the theory do for us in terms of understanding the nature of the mental, so on and so forth. So say, I don't know, let's say, you've got a number of topics you could pick from. You could talk about some of the fundamental concepts that we'll talk about next time. We're going to talk about mental states, propositional attitudes, intentionality, blah, 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 right? We're going to talk about all these concepts. Maybe you could write about those. We're going to talk about substance dualism. Probably a lot of stuff you could say about substance dualism and critically engage with dualism or behaviorism, right? So you could write on anything that we cover from the intro to philosophy of mind to dualism to behaviorism, anything you want, and critically engage with it. Um, I will give you detailed instructions on how to do this, and I will also give you a template. In fact, the instructions will be in the template, and I'll go over them with you once the template is available. I'll also give you like I don't really do rubrics. I do have a grading scheme, which I'm going to turn into a checklist. So as you're working on your reflection assignments and your proposal and your essay, you're going to want to make sure you're checking these boxes, right? And those boxes will be things like um, are the spelling and grammar good? Are you within the word limit? Um, are you engaging with something that you ought to be engaging with? Um, are you, well, what else? Are you committing any errors of reasoning? You want to make sure that your writing is free of fallacies, um, right? Formal and informal. So these will be the boxes that you need to check. And I'll make sure that you know all of this before you have to complete the assignment. You'll submit proof of student work too, which I will tell you about in a moment. One thing I'll say about all proof of student work in this class is that if I don't have it, I don't mark your work. Neither will Jack. I will tell you what we're looking for in terms of proof of work in a moment. So you're going to have two of those reflection assignments where basically like you pick something that's interesting to you and you critically engage with it, or maybe you pick something outside of the scope of the course and talk about it within the context of what we're learning here. So we're not really going to be talking about, I don't know, we're not going to be talking about anything too far out. But if you wanted to talk about something crazy, like, I don't know, a lot of students, because I'm the robotics and AI guy, they're like, can I write a reflection assignment on uploading my mind to a computer? Totally. As long as you do it within the context of what we are learning, right? So use what we've learned and apply that towards your discussion of the topic you've chosen. You can do that too. And of course, if you have any questions about whether what you've picked for your reflection assignment or your essay proposal, whether it's a suitable thing, just send me an email and I'll let you know. Okay, for the essay proposal, you're going to be, well, basically writing a proposal. And I'm going to deliver a lecture that gives you all of the instructions here. But basically, you take your template and you're going to want to fill that template out. Um, you're going to give me a title, a topic, an area of interest, a research question and answer, or a thesis statement, and then a plan of attack. Um, Sorry, my dog's barking. I'm not sure if you can hear it, but hopefully it's not too distracting if you can hear it. I know it's distracting to me. But anyway, um, title, area of interest, research question and answer, or thesis statement, plan of attack, and sources that you've gathered thus far. That's going to be due on June 5th. 25% of your grade. Proof of student work will be required before I mark your proposals. The idea behind the proposals is that I and Jack, or Jack and we can set you up um, for success for your paper. So, we will make sure that you have selected an appropriate topic, that your plan is sound, that you have articulated a good thesis statement, that you're identifying the right types of sources. Um, and we can offer constructive criticism. When possible, we will offer other sources that you can read, although it is incumbent upon you to do your research for these assignments. If Jack or myself thinks of something that we think will be helpful, we will make that recommendation, but don't rely on us to do that. If we need to do some course correction, we'll do that. So if you're like, I want to write a paper on, such and such a topic, but it doesn't really fit within the themes of the class, we can offer you suggestions on how to reframe it so that it does. Um, and then the idea is you take all of that feedback, all of that constructive criticism, all of the tips and tricks we offer you, and you take your proposal, you rewrite it, turn it into the beginning of your essay. So I'll have more to say about that again when I give the instructions for these assignments. And then the research essay is your take home examination. So that will be due on June 27th, which is the final day of the exam period. It's worth 40% of your grade. You're aiming for 16 to 1800 words. The important thing in all of these assignments is not to go under the word limit. I often get this question, can I go over the word limit? Uh, I guess, as long as there's no unnecessary repetition, and as long as you don't go crazy, right? If the essay is supposed to be 16 to 1800 words long, please don't submit a 3,000 word essay. It, I'm sure it's a great essay, but that's a lot to read. So try and stick within the word limit, but you don't have to worry about going too far above the word limits if there's no unnecessary repetition. The important thing is not to go under the word count. As mentioned, we're going to give you lots of feedback on your proposals, so we expect the essays to be well done, clearly written, well researched, good thesis, using sources, using scholarly sources to support your argument, and also in a way that shows us that you understand what those sources actually say. We also want everything to be cited properly, and you'll submit proof of work. Um, okay, plagiarism policy statement. Pretty straightforward. This is just kind of like taken from, well, in a sense, I guess, well, maybe this is plagiarized because it's just from the thing they sent out for all of us to use, and I haven't cited it, but I guess it's okay because we're not meant to cite it. But plagiarism is presenting, whether intentionally or not, ideas or the ideas, expression of ideas, or work of others as your own, including content generated by AI tools. So, read through this on this page and on the policies section on the last couple pages, but you need to make sure you avoid plagiarism by citing your sources properly. This this helps us. Well, not only is it important to cite properly, just because improper citation can be considered plagiarism, but citing your sources makes it really clear which ideas are yours and which are not. Um, Appropriating someone else's ideas and using them as your own is plagiarism. So make sure you cite everything properly. Um, the only thing that I'll really, really, really stress for now is that plagiarism is pretty serious. If plagiarism is suspected, I alone cannot deal with it. So, if, for example, I suspect that plagiarism has occurred, I have to report it to the chair of the philosophy department, who has to report it to, I believe it's the associate dean, who conducts an investigation. And if they find that you have committed plagiarism, the penalties can be quite severe. They can range from failing the assignment to failing the course, if it's like a second or a third offense. It also goes on your transcript. So, that stuff follows you around. So don't plagiarize. When in doubt, cite. And if you want to know how to cite, use Purdue's online writing lab, or OWL. I have a policy as well on the use of generative AI. Um, the use of generative AI in this class is, for most intents and purposes, not allowed. Um, and even for the uses that I have decided to allow, I actually don't encourage you to do this. Um, but I've allowed the use of generative AI for conducting research, um, which includes coming up with potential topics for things like your essays, and for identifying sources. Um, but this is like, you know, I guess it's okay. That's how I'm describing it. Like, I guess this is okay, but I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it if I were you. Why? Because the technology is not perfect. While I think, I mean, my favorite thing about generative AI is that it works like a search engine that you can communicate with in natural language, and I actually do think that's quite helpful. But we all know it hallucinates. So if you use it to come up with a topic for anything, I would like you to acknowledge that you used it. And if you use it to identify sources, you really, really need to make sure those sources actually exist. Um, and I want you to disclose that you've used it for these reasons. That said, I do not encourage you to use it for these reasons, and I absolutely do not allow generative AI for editing, writing, revising, proofreading, none of that. Do not use generative AI for any of that because generative AI, aside from the virtues of these large language models, namely search engines you can talk to in natural language, they are essentially plagiarism machines, resource intensive plagiarism machines. So I strongly discourage even the uses that I've allowed. I don't do that. Build your own skill set. You know, uh, the mind is like a muscle. You have to exercise it. If you want to come up with a good topic, you've got to put in the work. If you want to do good research, you've got to put in the work. That will make you a better scholar. So you can use AI as an assistant in these senses if you wish, but I wouldn't encourage you to do so. Any other use, strictly prohibited. Excellent. Um, student work. Okay, proof of work. Everybody wants to know, inquiring minds want to know what proof of student work is. Well, here's some more boilerplate stuff, right? I reserve the right to ask you for pretty much anything that I think might be important to look at if there's anything fishy going on. So that could include notes, rough drafts, photocopies or screenshots of cover pages and first cited page of each reference source, any other material deemed relevant to the assignment. I can ask you to explain the steps you took when completing an assignment, which could include anything from the reflection assignments to the proposal to the final essay. I reserve the right to do all of that. And I will do that if something fishy is going on. So if I see something that looks a little sus, I will ask to meet with you and I will ask you about these things. But other than that, what you will be required to do in terms of proof of work is to submit drafts which demonstrate the incremental progress you've made on your assignments. So for the reflection assignments and the essay proposals, I want to see, and let me be very clear about this, I want to see 2 early drafts plus a final draft. So that's 3 drafts in total. For the essay, I want to see 3 early drafts plus the final, at least. You can submit more, but not less. If I do not receive these drafts, I don't mark your work. Um, I don't want file histories. I mean, I guess in a pinch, I might ask you for some, but I'd rather see drafts which show me the incremental progress of your work. Now, I realize that people write differently. Some people write a little bit at a time. So they might write the first half of their reflection assignment, then step away for a day or two, then go back and write the second half, and then that's draft two. Then step away, come back, proofread it, make it nice. That's the final draft. That's great. Submit those 3 drafts. Some people will write all in one shot. Okay, but you should proofread it and fix it a few times. Give it a second and a third pass and save each of those as drafts. Submit them all. No, there are documents. Yeah, so not screenshots. They are literal draft documents. So save your work as you go, right? So save your work, say you're working on the reflection assignment. You write the first half. So you get to about 350 words or something. Save that, like reflection assignment 1, draft 1. Then when you come back and work on it, you write the other half. Save that, reflection assignment 1, draft 2. Then you come back and you proofread it and you make it perfect, polish it up, make it real nice. Reflection assignment one, final draft, right? Just use the save as feature. Uh, no, I don't really do that. That's not what the drafts are for. But what you can do, Arshia, is see if anybody who wants to read over them on Discord. Like if you say, "Hey, Discord friends, if you proofread my paper, I'll proofread yours." That's great. That's like collaboration, teamwork, peer review. I like to see that, and yeah, you can absolutely do that. Well, it depends, Matthew. Like I said, some people will write a little bit at a time, and some people will just get everything out on the page and then go through it uh, and edit and revise. So it really depends. But I'll talk about this in more detail when I deliver the essay writing instructions. And let's see. Adanamola says final drafts like the essay before proof reading. No, the final draft is the final draft. Final draft is the completed essay. So your early drafts are what you're writing and polishing up and revising. The final is the final. That is what I mark. Yeah. No, the time between drafts doesn't matter. So you could start your first reflection assignment tonight and then not work on it again for like a week and a half. That's fine. Yeah, I don't care. I just want you to clearly save them. So like draft 1, draft 2, draft 3, etc. I want you to submit them in PDF or doc format. I can't open other file types. Um, and what the drafts should do, again, is demonstrate the incremental progress you have made on these assignments. And I realize people write differently, right? That's why some drafts are going to be like a little bit at a time, and some drafts are going to be like the whole thing, but continuous editing and revising. You can. Some people do that. Some people use track changes, Janet. In fact, yeah, you can do that. Like if you write your first draft and then you make changes and you want to do track changes and submit that as a draft, yeah, that's great. Do that. Yeah, yeah. I don't care about the time. I care that it shows that you've done the work. Yep. Some people do like 10 drafts, which is a bit much, and they might send me like draft 2, draft 5, draft 8 and then the final, right? They don't send all 10 drafts. That's fine too. Some people write their first draft by hand and they take a picture of it. That's also okay. Because, I'll be able to see in the metadata of the photograph whether it's a real photograph. So if you're somebody who likes to do like, say for your essay, you come up with like a little idea map or a concept map, and you're just kind of doodling and trying to get your thoughts onto the paper, and you want that to be like a zeroth draft, take a picture of it. That's fine too. That shows me that you're doing the work, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why that I have students do this. Um, One reason is because we're in this age of generative AI, which is kind of good and bad at the same time. Um, I think generative AI has some virtues, but I'm not really a fan overall. This is one way that I can be sure that you wrote your work, not ChatGPT or Claude or Grok or whatever. But that is not to say that I think all of you are going to use ChatGPT. No, I don't think you are. I think you are here to learn. I think you're all here in good faith. You want to do the work properly and, get something out of this course. I really do believe that. So I'm not doing this because I think you're all just going to default to having AI do your work for you. Another reason I do this is that I have found that forcing students to do their work this way actually makes them better writers. Um, I've had some students say like, "Well, I just like to write my essay all in one shot and be done with it." And I say to them, "Well, that's fine, I guess, but it's not going to be a very good essay." Um, if you have to write a little bit at a time and then come back with fresh eyes and continue working on it or revise something you've already written, or if you write it all in one shot, you step away, come back, and keep revising, um, that makes you a better writer. Like that, it makes you a better writer. It makes your work better written work. Um, and as a result, I've noticed that like my students tend to use AI less, and they tend to do better work and become better writers. And learning to write, like learning academic writing, is one of the learning objectives for this course. And this also, another thing, a little bonus for me, is that when I skim through these drafts, it gives me a little bit of an insight into your writing process. So if I look at the drafts for your proposal, and I see into your writing process, that opens up like even more potential feedback that I can give you or that Jack can give you. So I'm not having you do this because I'm being like the plagiarism police. I mean, I'm not solely doing that because I'm being the plagiar. I am the plagiarism police, but I'm also the, you know, the. I also want you to write well, and this helps you develop those skills. So that's another reason why we do this. Okay, email policy. I've kind of covered this already. You want to make sure you communicate to my Carlton email from your Carlton email. I will try and answer emails within 24 hours. Sometimes, if things get real busy, I might not be able to answer that quickly. And I probably won't answer you after 5 p.m. or on the weekend. But I will answer you as soon as I can. I really ask that you don't email me with questions about anything that I've covered in this outline or in any of my instructions, right? This always happens because the people who send these emails are the ones who are not going to watch this lecture. But it always happens, right? Before the essay is due or something, I get questions like, "How many drafts do I need?" Well, we covered that, and we will cover it again. So, please don't. Just because, we're busy. We're all busy. So don't email me about anything I've already covered. The classroom, well, we're not in a room, but this is like a virtual room. And the Discord community policies. You can join the Discord server if you wish. Download the app, register, log in, click the link. You'll see, actually, how about I open it up right now? Where's Discord? There's Discord. So we open up Discord, and once you join the server, you'll go to the Mind and Metal server here. Come on. There we go. So there's a general sort of channel, general text channel. But if you go here to this channel, this is a channel specifically for this course. Now, there's lots of stuff in there. That's from last summer. That's fine. Oh, that's when I tipped my canoe over. That was fun. Um, but jump in and engage with everyone if you want to. Um, I ask and I expect that all of our interactions on the Discord server, as well as here in our little virtual classroom, will be civil. Now, I haven't really had a problem with this. I have had some close calls, um, but by and large, I haven't really had a problem with this. By being civil, what I mean is that everybody is respectful with one another. Nobody's violating the Carleton human rights policy. Nobody is violating the student rights and responsibilities. So, I don't want to see any abuse, trolling, harassment, bullying. I don't want to see anything disruptive. If that happens, you could be removed from the classroom. or from the server, or from the course, depending on the severity. Basically, I want you all to treat one another the way you would like to be treated, and that is in a respectful manner. Again, haven't really had a problem with this, but I've had some close calls, and I've heard horror stories of like online bullying from other Discord communities. That will not fly in my class, so don't do it. I'm sure you won't, but uh, just make sure you read through these. In fact, I think you have to read through these policies or acknowledge that you've read through them before you can actually post on my Discord server. So, but know that this class is like a safe place for us in a couple of senses. Uh, we're going to be in we want to treat each other with respect. We're all human beings. Okay, we're all going to be respectful, treat each other respectfully and in a dignified, civil manner, and we're also going to be safe to explore potentially um, controversial questions. So when we talk about dualism, we're gonna inevitably encounter questions that are related to the soul, to maybe religious or theological questions, um, and we're probably a pretty eclectic bunch in this class. So let's treat everybody the way that we ourselves would like to be treated, and I'm sure that you all will. Yeah, well, people do have strong feelings about whether they exist. Um, the weirdest stuff is probably going to come when we talk about epiphenomenalism and free will. That's going to be the freakiest stuff. But I'm sure we'll all be able to handle it in a civil manner. Um, Assignment deferral policy. Again, I tend to be pretty accommodating, so um, you know, don't fret if you're like, oh man, like my toilet exploded and I have to wait for the plumber. I can't finish my work. Okay, just let me know. Or like, oh, I've got the flu, or whatever. Don't worry about it. Let me know. I will work with you. Okay, and we will make sure that you get the work done. Just contact me as soon as you can. That's all I ask. I can't help if I don't know, right? So contact me as soon as you are able to. Here's the grading system we'll be using. For the assignments, I give a number grade, and this is the range. And then when I input the final grades, those number grades are converted to letter grades. So if your average comes out somewhere between 85 and 89, you get an A, right? So pretty simple. It's pretty hard to fail my class. I'm not a terribly difficult marker, although I do find that as I get older and I do this longer, I get a little bit tougher. But I do also tend to be pretty charitable. And I also award, I think that it's not just rote learning, like your critical thinking skills and your creative thinking skills are something that I think that I like to see students develop in a course like this, and I reward that stuff. Um, it's pretty hard to fail. Uh, the people who end up failing one of my classes tend to be those people who either do something dumb like plagiarize, or they just don't submit any work. Otherwise, even if you run into trouble, I can make sure that you survive, that you pass the course. Okay. Any requests for academic accommodation? You might have certain obligations, and you can read the policies on the next page. So there's deferral policy, deferral for final exam, more stuff about plagiarism, a statement on AI. Again, the ideal amount of AI use in my course is probably zero, but if you are going to use it, I've carved out a couple of exceptions, but I would just advise you not to use it. Mental health. Um, something I forgot to say earlier. I take mental health as seriously as physical health. So, if you get like the flu and you can't finish your work, okay, I understand. If you have a bout of anxiety or you're feeling depressed, that's also serious, and I understand. And I will work with you, and I'll help hook you up with resources that you need to get you feeling better. Academic accommodation. We have lots of academic accommodations, pregnancy or religious obligations. So, if you're a pregnant person, you got to worry about your pregnancy, obviously. That takes priority. So, let me know. Keep me in the loop. You got a religious obligation. Maybe a due date falls on a religious holiday and you can't quite polish up your assignment because you've got religious commitments. That's fine. Just let me know. Students with disabilities, no problem. You got get yourself a letter of accommodation if you haven't already, or even if you don't, if you suspect you might have some kind of learning difference or something, talk to me. I can help get you in touch with people that you want to talk to, so to make sure that you get the accommodations that you need. If you're a survivor of sexual violence, uh, you know, um, hey, if that interferes with your ability to perform in this course, again, I will work with you. I will do my best to set you up for success. And student activities. Um, maybe you can't work on your essay proposal or your reflection assignment because you got to go to the chess tournament or the football game or the whatever it is. Fine. Talk to me. Let me know. I'll work with you. Here's all the important dates and deadlines. You can take a look at this on your own time. Here are some important addresses and websites and phone numbers. But that's about it for today. That's all I can think of. I think we've covered everything in this outline, and I think we've covered some stuff that's not in the outline too. So I guess before we go, well, we are finishing early. We won't finish this early every day because we won't be able to. But I guess what I'd like to know is whether any of you have any questions before we wrap it up for the day. Of course, if you think of something later, you can email me. If you don't have any questions now. And feel free to use the chat or raise your hand. Are you trying? So, which link are you using, Janet? Are you using the one in this course outline, or okay? I'll just put another one in the chat. They shouldn't have expired, but let's see. Well, I set mine to not expire. All right. Would you recommend reading forward in the class content? Well, you should read the readings for a given lecture before the lecture. I don't know if you want to read too far ahead because, again, it's a pretty technical book. But yeah, you should be reading the readings before we meet. Right. This one. Okay, so edit. Never. Generate a new link. Copy. Paste. There you go. Oh, I only sent that to Tyson. I meant to send that to everybody. Okay. Now, for everybody here, you should be able to use that link. There you are. I can hear you all popping into the server now. And I will update that link on Brightspace as well, so that everybody else who wasn't here today, they can get there and get that link. Um, are there any other questions? I have heard, yes, Matthew, I've heard of it. I have. I've had a few students tell me about it, in fact, but I have not had the chance to play it. I do not. I like. Look, I like video games. I have almost no time to play them. Um, that's kind of the situation that I'm in. And when I am doing something recreational these days, I'm less into video games and more like playing music. It's not that I don't like video games or that I won't play them. It's just right now I'm kind of focused on other things. Oh, cool. Jenna, yeah. I'll have to say hi to Jenna. Shannon, maybe you can say hi to Jenna for me. Guitar, Tyson, guitar. Yeah.
Cool.
Hmm. Okay. Anything else? I know there's somebody who wants to have a word with me after class, and yes, that is good. We will do that. But are there any other questions before I let you go for the day?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Charlotte. And getting some virtual thumbs up there too. So I guess we're good. So, if you do think of something later,
Uh,
just send me an email. Um, Otherwise, I will see you
yes, sir.
all on Monday.
I have a question.
A question? Sure, go ahead.
So I'm taking this as an elective for the
Mm-hmm.
an
Okay.
engineering elective, and in order for it to count as a complimentary elective, there needs to be a synchronous part. Does this count even though you're
Yeah.
making all the lessons online?
Yes, it is. It is still a synchronous course. It's just that I am recording the lectures
Okay.
for those people that either can't be there synchronously or if you want to review anything that I've said, which is helpful by the way. Like, when it comes time to write your essay, you might be like, "Oh, what was that thing that Professor Redstone said about dualism that I forgot to write down?" Well, it's in the lecture. You can just watch it again, right? So yeah, no, this is a synchronous course. It's just recording and reposting the lectures is it's just for the benefit of those students who miss a lecture or who want to do some extra review.
All right. Perfect. Thanks so much.
No problem. All right. Well, if that is all, I will see you all on Monday, and we will look at Kim Chapter 1, Introduction to Philosophy of Mind. And remember to read They're Made Out of Meat, or alternatively, watch They're Made Out of Meat. We'll probably start off with some discussion of that story. It's a good one, so be sure to check it out. I'll see you next time, everybody.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to this, guys. This is going to be fun. This is going to be fun. So see you Monday.